What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to show you how to speed up vending machine cycles without having to use your pickaxe. Let's get to it. So basically what you want to do first is go to your phone, go to the inventory, then select devices. Now you need two things. You need the trigger and the pulse trigger. Once you have those two devices, you can place the pulse trigger first. What this does is send a pulse to the trigger to activate it. What I recommend you do is name your pulse trigger so it's easier to find. Once you're done naming your pulse trigger, you can then go to the end of it and place down the trigger. You want to place the trigger so that the orange button faces the pulse trigger. This will make it easier for you to see when the pulse trigger hits the trigger. You want to have the trigger as far back inside the rectangular box as you can, so it's easier to adjust the length of the rectangular box if you want to. Before you go to the settings, make sure you name the trigger so it's easier to find it, as you did with the pulse trigger. Once you're done placing the two devices, your setup should look something similar to this. Once you're done with the setup, you can then go to your phone and go to your inventory. Once you're there, go to devices and find the vending machine. Then get 2 or 3 of your favorite weapons and put them in your inventory. Once you have your vending machine and your weapons, you can then place your vending machine down. In order for your weapons to be in the vending machine, you're going to have to drop each weapon next to your vending machine. And be aware that the order you drop your weapons is the order that they will be in the vending machine. Now we're going to dive into what your settings should be for your trigger and pulse trigger. The visible in-game setting is all up to you. We want to set triggered by player setting to off, as well as triggered by items and triggered by vehicles. We want triggered by sequencers to be on, triggered by water to be off, and set activate to game start. We want times can be triggered set to infinite. The trigger VFX and the trigger SFX are personal preferences if you want it to show the visual effects or if you want the players to hear the sound effects. Set the delay trigger to last. This really doesn't matter if the trigger is outside the playing area. Before I do the events tab, I'm going to go to the vending machine and name it. Now that I'm done naming it, I'm going to select it and add it to the events tab. If you have multiple devices like I have, it's much easier to name your devices. Once you selected your device, then you can go to the functions and select cycle to next item. Now that you're done with the trigger, go to your vending machine and go to the functions tab. Once there, you should see the trigger. Once we're done with the trigger, we can now head over to the pulse trigger. Head over to the settings tab and set loop infinitely to on. The tempo and length are up to you if you want to speed up or slow down the cycle. Have the zone direction forward and the activation to pulse. Set the disable activation while running to off, as this will interrupt the pulse signal loop and ruin the cycle. Select activate when paused to off. Select activate on phase to game start, as you did with the trigger. Set player information to on. Enable on phase to always, and the pulse style, set it to off. Now that you're done with the pulse trigger, let's go to the vending machines. Now that we're done with the setup, we will now see the difference between these two vending machines. One without the function and one with the function. Now I will start the game and show you what it looks like. Now that the game started, you can see the pulse trigger has been activated. And as the pulse hits the trigger, the vending machine on the left cycles to the next item faster than the one on the right. And that is how you cycle to the next item in a vending machine without having to use your pickaxe. If you learned something from this and you enjoyed it and want to see more of it, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments.